permanent peace. Afghanis have gone through 20 years of war with the Soviet Union and 20 years with the USA. 40 years of war. You can say 2 generations have been going through war. In the end, nothing has happened because that is the record of Afghanistan, Afghans, because they are guerrilla fighters. Now, this is the guerrilla fighters. If we go back briefly to Vietnam, though the US and NATO, but particularly French, who also had run away because the Indochina was a French area, that they, in the end, it was the public opinion. It was the public opinion which became so strong, especially in the USA, because of which US government had to withdraw from Afghanistan as well as Vietnam. But Vietnam problem traveled to Laos and Cambodia. So there is no fault of Laos and Cambodia. They have no conflict with French or anybody. But because Viet Cong will be running to them and Viet Cong will be running towards China, so USA develops antipathy to China, that there will be communism there or so on. Now communism, these ideologies get formed, but they have to be balanced by some ideologies which are peace ideologies. The case of Korea is quite clear. I don't need to tell the history or share the history. I may not be that knowledgeable also, but in the end, it is in the interest of Korea, just like it was in the interest of Vietnam, to be joined. Some peace effort will make that happen. Because otherwise, the military expenditure as a percentage of the GNP goes up. And therefore, to that extent, the expenditure on the social services goes down. So we have a very good tradition of Gandhi Institute of Peace Studies, Gandhi, which are there in the universities. We study his philosophy of non-cooperation and remaining a true person, remaining a person with morals while fighting with the perpetrator of colonialism and other crimes. And he was greatly successful in such a large country with such diverse situation. So it's worthwhile studying Gandhiji's lectures. Now, many places outside also, like Papua New Guinea, university there, have the Gandhi Center for Peace Studies, and it's a proper area of study. Now, what we would be doing is, while we introduce to peace economics, then we go on to economic costs of war and conflict. One quick thing which can be seen in the context of Ukraine is that Ukraine is getting, on an average, $60 to $70 billion as aid every year, and about 30 to 40 is by EU. Though there is a 50-nation aid Ukraine group for military aid, but let's not overstate it. At least $100 billion per year is this kind of subsidy which Ukraine is getting. Now, what is Ukraine not earning or earning? Most of the industry is disturbed. Their infrastructure is disturbed. There is so much expenditure on the armed forces. Of course, there are people who are dead. Estimates vary, but it is in hundreds of thousands, whether 1, 2, or 3. Then about 2 plus 2, at least 4 million people have gone out. These are youngsters, full of energy, knowledgeable people. It's trade, major trade which is there in the grains and sunflower oil and so on. It is one of the leading producers in the world, a leading producer, exporter in the world. That trade is affected. And it's only peaceful mechanisms which can solve it out. For example, they did do this BSGI, the Black Sea Grain Initiative, where with Russia and Ukraine and Turkey and UN brokered it, but then it failed because certain promises which were made to Russia were not fulfilled. So now they also had a conference in London about 4 months ago to find out that what would be the cost of rehabilitation in Ukraine, and that is basically to the infrastructure, and the cost was turned out to be $750 billion estimate by the IMF. It varied between 500 to 1 trillion. So that's $750. Now they say that that money should be paid by Russia. And this is where then the politics comes in. Russia's $750 billion has already been captured under sanctions by the USA. Whatever the money was there in the of the Central Bank of Russia has been captured. Now, what is the logic of it? It's people's money, and so on. It's not government's money, and then you capture it. They impose sanctions, and sanctions were supposed to hit Russia very hard, but actually they have hit Europe itself by cost of oil going up. They're blowing pipes. Now, this is where the certain conventions which are there, that you don't blow up essential infrastructure, you don't blow up hospitals, you don't blow up churches. This is part of the Geneva Convention, but they do. And while one might talk about very high level of morals, political morals, or government morals, but when they were negotiating the Black Sea Grain Initiative again in the July of 23, USA had given these bombs starting with C, cluster bombs, which were thrown on the bridge which connects Kirish Bridge, which connects Crimea to Russia. So the water cannot come from there for drinking. You have a fight, so on. Now, how many peace initiatives have been made by China, by African Union, by Brazil, by BRICS, and there is zero response from European Union, USA, and Ukraine itself. What more can they do? There are a number of things they are willing to adjust to. Now, same thing is happening in Israel. That there is a UN in which Russia took a resolution saying there should be ceasefire. They did not accept it. Then there was a compromise resolution which said that there should be humanitarian corridors for aid. They did not agree with that. USA vetoed it. So on one hand, the media will keep on talking, the think tank will keep on talking that let there be peace. And this is what happens. You don't even give them water, fuel, energy, food, and don't even allow humanitarian aid which others are willing to pay. Now, few days ago, USA said that they will be giving $100 million aid for Palestine, which will include a lot of things. But they will be giving $100 billion now, that is 1,000 times, to Ukraine, Israel, and Lebanon for fighting. So these are the things to be understood, that what are the causes? What are the causes of conflict, for example, of Ukraine or of Palestine or of USA and Iran? They ostensibly say that it is because of nuclear weapons. The economics of arms trade, of course, now it is kind of becoming very open that it's the military-industrial complex, which Eisenhower had said is the most risky thing, which now overpowers everything, and there is no shortage of budgets for the military. For example, $856 billion budget proposed by USA, though their deficit is more than $1 trillion. Okay, so economics of natural resources, we've talked about, we've given some examples. It is across the board that natural resources, direct and indirect, colonization takes place. Linkage between economic inequality and conflict, which is very obvious, because those who are suppressed, Yemen is the example, Houthis, elsewhere in Africa. The reason for coups there also is that Africa is rich, but the Africans are poor. They see before their eyes their oil, their gold, their diamond, etc. to be taken out at small prices, while they suffer for everything. Then we can look at how game theory can help us in conflict analysis, and what are the emerging challenges and opportunities for peace. Opportunities of peace are as big as the opportunities for the military industrial complex, which means $1 trillion plus. Not all of that needs to be spent. If there is friendship between, let's say, USA and Canada, they don't need to spend that much. If there is friendship between USA and Mexico, they don't need to spend that much. And these small in GDP nations in Africa spend fair amount of their revenues and even aid on weapons. So there is a great scope for peace. And in the end, we notice that there is so much of destruction which takes place, and the amounts get diverted from the social services to these things. So then the philosophical aspects, that peace is better. No, just for information's sake, in the living memory, India has not ever invaded its neighbors. Never. Could be the effect of Buddhism. Buddhism also traveled on its own, not by pushing it. And the Buddhism was adapted in different parts of Asia as the local persons would have desired, the Japanese, the Chinese, the Southeast Asians. So with this we'll stop. We will be doing this course both in a conceptual sense and through a number of case studies of different areas like Vietnam and Korea and Middle East and Ukraine and so on. Thank you very much.